All right, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to talk all about habits. Now, habits are super important because what they allow you to do is maintain consistency. Now, as an endurance athlete, consistency is one of the most important things that you can leverage when it comes to your training and racing. Doesn't matter how intense a particular workout is, if you're not consistent at those workouts, doing those workouts day by day, week by week, month by month, then it doesn't matter, right? Doing one intense workout in the lead up to a marathon is nowhere near as powerful as being consistent and nailing each workout as the weeks and months go by. So today we're going to talk all about habits and how you can use them and leverage them and how they work, right? The psychology behind them. So let's dig in. First step is to know which habits you even need to create, right? How do you know which habits to do? Which ones are good to do? Which ones are helpful? So goal setting will be a separate video. So that's not this video. But suffice it to say, you need to be intentional and thoughtful about which goals you're choosing to pursue and how you structure those goals, right? But let's say, for argument's sake, you have some goals. I'll link that video below if I have uploaded it since. But grab those goals and deconstruct them and figure out what needs to happen for you to hit those goals, right? So does a habit need to be, hey, I need to up my run frequency from twice a week, which is, now to 5 times a week, right? That's an example of a goal where now you have clear direction on what habits need to happen, right? I need to up my runs from twice a week to 5 times a week. Once you know that, now you have a clear path on where to start. Now, let me rewind for a second. The main example in my life that has taught me about the importance of consistency is when I raced Ultraman. Now, for those who don't know, Ultraman is a multi-day kind of multiple Ironman triathlon put together. Most people think that, Ironman is kind of the pinnacle, right, of athletic performance. It's like a one-day grueling event. Ultraman is 3 days of that. And if it wasn't for consistency in the lead up to that race, for the probably year or more leading up to that race, if it wasn't for that consistency, there's no way I would have been able to do that race. And honestly, going through that training plan, that's really what got me to start thinking about the true importance of consistency, right? Up until then, I was consistent for sure with other training, but I was also kind of, if I miss one here or there, it'd be fine. I could just make up for it by doing an extra hard workout the next time. And we won't get into like the physiology or science of that and why it might work or might not work. But the point is, Ultraman training is really what showed me the true importance of consistency, because it all adds up, right? Especially when the stakes are that high and the endurance needed is that high. Every little mistake is really apparent. So consistency is king. Now, another piece I'll add before we get into the 3 tips or 3 steps is why habits and consistency matter more than motivation, right? Motivation is great. Motivation feels amazing. When you feel motivated, you feel like nothing can stop you, right? The problem with motivation, as I'm sure a lot of you know, is motivation is not permanent, right? Motivation is fleeting. So when you have it, it's great, but you don't always have it. And so that's the problem, because when you don't have it, you don't want your training or your life or whatever context we're talking about, we don't want that to fall apart, right? We want, when motivation to go, we want to maintain what it is that we need to do. And that is done through discipline, led by consistency, which can be helped by habits, right? So habits can lead to that execution even when we don't have motivation. All right, let's go to strategy number 1, and that's identity, right? We need to start identifying ourselves as the thing that we're trying to become. And this all relates to habits, so just stick with me. But for example, if I want to run a marathon, right? I've never run a marathon before, let's say, and I want to become a marathon runner. You can't think of yourself as someone who's training for their first marathon, right? A non-runner training for their first marathon. Instead, you have to reframe it and really identify with, I'm a marathon runner training for a marathon, right? Even if I've never done one before, there's a little bit of fake it till you make it kind of thing going on. But you cannot identify as, I'm not a runner. I'm training for my first marathon, but I'm not a runner. Flip that over to, I'm a runner and I'm a marathoner and I'm training for my marathon right now. That sort of identity mindset shift is really going to make a big difference when you're going to start making those small sort of subconscious decisions, right? Like you have to start thinking, what would a marathon runner do, right? Like say you're faced with a difficult decision. Maybe for example, let's say nutrition, right? Recovery, whether or not I want to take the time to stretch before going to bed, all those things. Instead of if you call yourself, hey, I'm not a runner, but I'm training for a marathon, you are so much less likely to do those things versus saying, hey, I'm a marathoner. What would a marathoner do in this scenario, right? What would insert name of pro marathoner? What would this person do? Oh, you bet they're going to, stick to this nutrition thing, or they're going to stretch, or they're going to do mobility, or whatever it is, right? So identity becomes so important because you start seeing yourself as whatever it is that you're trying to become. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that identity will drive your behavior more so than your goals, right? Because who you are will dictate what you do more so than what you say you want to achieve. Now, let's hammer on that for a second. I might have the goal of running whatever, insert time at insert race. That's a goal. And that might be a powerful goal, right? But if your identity is as a marathoner, and you think of yourself as a marathoner, and everything that you think in your mind is marathoner, this marathoner, that identity becomes so much more powerful, because now a lot of the good decisions that you are making on the day to day are done subconsciously. You don't even have to think about it, right? Because that's just who you are. It's who you've become. That's the power of identity. All right, let's get to strategy number 2, and that's habit stacking. So what habit stacking is you take an existing habit, existing thing that you already do, and you stack a new thing on top of it, right? So you're kind of leveraging the pathways that you've already built with an existing habit, and you're leveraging that to sort of adopt new routines and new habits. So for example, let's say you brush your teeth every morning, right? That's already a routine that you do. It's already a habit. You get up in the morning and you brush your teeth. If you immediately stack, okay, right after I brush my teeth, every single morning, whenever I brush my teeth, I'm going to do 10 air squats, just as an example, right? You could do anything, but just as an example. You already know you're going to brush your teeth every morning. So now every time you brush your teeth, without even thinking, put your toothbrush away, pop down, do 10 air squats, right? You're leveraging the pathway that you've already built by brushing your teeth to start doing this new thing. Now, you can leverage it in so many different ways. You can do, while I'm grinding my beans for my coffee, I'm going to drop down and do 10 push-ups, right? Or after I brush my teeth in the evening, I'm going to lay out all my run clothes for the next morning, right? Because we're going to get into that in the next strategy. But basically, using existing things that you already do to kind of stack up new and healthy and good habits that you're trying to establish. And you can stack more than 2, right? Say you add air squats after you brush your teeth in the morning. Once you nail that down, now you can add a third one. You're going to brush your teeth, do air squats, and do some calf raises on the doorstep or whatever, right? Like you can keep adding and adding and adding. And so it just stacks. The more you do it, the more you're able to add. Okay, and the third strategy is thoughtful and intentional environmental design, right? You need to craft the environment that's around you to suit the habits and goals that you have. The environment is so powerful, right? It is so impactful and influential on who you are, what you do every day, like what you're surrounded with and surrounded by, both in terms of, objects, people, thing, whatever it is. All the things around you influence who you are so profoundly that it really is a hack if you can learn to sort of manipulate and like leverage and craft your environment so that it sort of forces you to get the things done that you want to get done or build a habit. So a couple examples of this is to lay out your running clothes the night before so that when you wake up in the morning, you're just lessening. This is a whole game of just lessening friction, right? You want to reduce friction between you and what you know you need to do, right? So for example, laying out clothing, workout clothing the night before, prepping your nutrition, right? So maybe you're really hangry or you're starving because you came home from work and you eat all day. Instead of ordering out or eating something bad, If you had prepped nutrition, right, you're way less tempted to do that because you have food that's already prepared. Keeping training gear visible, right, whether it's running stuff or cycling stuff or weightlifting, whatever, just having it ready and not put away, right, like in your face, so that every time you go by, you see it, you touch it, you kick it, whatever, and it just stays front of mind. Again, the main thing is remove friction as much as possible between yourself and what you know you need to be doing. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the compounding effect of small steps, right? And one little change does not seem like a huge thing. But, for example, if you were to do a 5-minute body weight routine right after you brush your teeth, right? Let's say that's your habit stack, right? I'm going to do a 5-minute body weight routine in the living room right after I brush my teeth while my coffee is brewing every morning. 10 push-ups, 10 squats, 10 planks, or 10 sit-ups, or whatever it is, right? After a couple days, you probably won't notice any difference, right? Truth be told. After a month, 6 weeks, you'll notice a little bit of strength gains. After 6 months or a year, the change is nuts, right? But it all starts with day one, where you don't notice any difference. So just keep in mind that the compounding effect of those small little steps, they add up. They add up so much the more you do them. And again, hanging on this word, consistency, the more consistently you do them. Since we're talking to endurance athletes, a couple quick mistakes that I see endurance athletes make. Training too hard without consistency, right? Meaning trying to replace consistency with intensity. Now, if scheduling is a certain way or whatever, if your life is structured a certain way where you can't control that, obviously something is better than nothing. But trying to replace consistency because you're not, the lack of consistency coming from, let's say, lack of organization or laziness or lack of habits or whatever it is, like things that can be prevented, that's not great, because a lot of times when you try to replace consistency with intensity, that leads to a higher risk of injury. Another mistake, relying on motivation. Again, motivation is great. It feels amazing. When you have it, for sure, use it. But you should not rely on motivation, right? If you have decided on a plan and your plan dictates for a certain thing, not feeling like doing it is not a valid reason to not do it, right? Your motivation or desire to do it does not matter. And once you can kind of build your strategies and your structures, again, around habits and consistency, so that it's not a question anymore, right? It's not, oh, do I feel like running today or not? It doesn't matter, right? If the plan says to run, you run. And so that all comes with habits and consistency and discipline too, which is another video, but we'll get there later. To kind of wrap it up here, a simple formula that you can use to kind of get started with this, right? Because once you get going, you'll kind of see how it works and you'll just run with it. But a way to get started is for obviously identify the goals, right? Break those goals down so you can find out what the habits are that you actually need to make in the first place. Start small, right? Don't go crazy. Just start small, little incremental steps. Start small, stay consistent. That's the big key. You can always add more later, but just the important thing is to get things going, right? So start small, build consistency, track your progress. That's also really helpful, because that way you can see the progression, whether it's tracking your runs on the Garmin watch or writing it down in a notes app, or keeping marbles in a jar that you're every day you add one to or something. Focus on identity again, right? Make sure you're identifying as the thing that you're trying to become. Think of yourself as that, and just kind of watch it all come together. Just be patient. It takes time, but the good thing is once you've developed it, the longer you do it, the more ingrained it is inside of you. So again, hope you learned something today. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful. If you have any follow-up questions, if there's enough questions, maybe I'll build like a part 2 video out of this. But again, hope it was useful, and talk to y'all later.